This is the Weigh-In Podcast by Benoit Chestnut and the occasional pop-in Sebastian Romero. On this week's Weigh-In, what do we have for you? Well, it is here. Terence Crawford versus Canelo, and we're going to break down how we feel this is going to go. Let's get it. That is this week's Weigh-In, and as normal, whatever else comes up during the time of recording. So, let's get right into this one. So, if we waste no time, none whatsoever, not a full second more or less, we go over what's going down with this Terence Crawford and Canelo. So, if we're going to get right into this Terence Crawford versus Canelo, it is happening this Saturday. So now that we got that out of the way and we know what's happening this Saturday, we're going to get back into the particulars. And what is that? What's going to happen here? So, good one here. How we feel about it. So the Weigh-In feels, we're going to break our opinion here. This fight is very well I favor Terence Crawford in this fight. Terence Crawford is a true craftsmanship. I think that if we get a high-level Terence Crawford, this fight's going to go a lot differently. He's ready. He's done a good camp. He's had some good guys in his camp. You're seeing that Terence Crawford is more prepared for this. And, if you all didn't see the push and shoving on the stage, man, there was some push and shoving going on the stage. And for that exact reason is why I feel like Terence Crawford is going to want to come out and do what he can do. And I'm not trying to discredit here Canelo. Canelo is a great fighter. Canelo has been able to do great things in his career. But now we're talking about Terence Crawford. We're talking about Terence Crawford here, who took out Earl Spence Jr., was able to undispute 2 weight classes. That's something Canelo was never able to touch. 2 undisputed weight classes, he was never able to touch that. And the difference here is Terence Crawford is the guy. And I believe Terence Crawford can get the job done. And why I believe Terence Crawford can get the job done is because the true craftsmanship of Terence Crawford. If you've seen a Terence Crawford fight, you would know he's got some true craftsmanship in it from his punches. He combinates very well. When he sets stuff up, he pack loads his punches very well to where it's not just a jab. It's 1, 2, 3, 4. And even 4, 5 in some cases. And he's very good at it. So when he comes out of his 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, some cases, he's able to come out of there standing very well without taking a lot of punches, but he's able to be a true craftsmanship. The precision punches, the accuracy of Terence Crawford, you don't have something like that. The fact that Terence Crawford, a lot of his punches land. There's not a lot of misses when it comes to Terence Crawford. He's very accurate. And that's how he was able to break down Earl Spence Jr. because the accuracy he had that fight was absolutely out of control. And that's why he broke down Spence. And that's why I sit here and I think Canelo's in danger of being broken down too. And that's just my opinion. I think that Canelo, if he doesn't find it early, if he doesn't find his footing for how he wants to dictate this fight, I think Terence Crawford is going to highly dictate this fight. And if Terence Crawford goes in there and dictates the fight, that's going to be it for Canelo. I know all of you are very good Canelo fans. A lot of you like to believe that Canelo could get the job done. I understand that for most of you. I would love to agree with you on that. But I just cannot when I know that Terence Crawford can do a lot of good things. And the things Terence Crawford can do is he can go in there and show everybody what's true to nature, what is crawfish season. And when you see something like that, it makes it highly difficult to go in there and say, hey, Canelo's going to do this and that. Yeah, but if Canelo can't find a way to answer the accuracy of Terence Crawford, it's going to be a bad night for Canelo. And he's getting himself in here where I think there's a high-level chance. Now, I'll give you a lot of credit. I'm not going to say either guy's going to knock somebody out. I really think this may go to the scorecard of the judges more than most. I think this is going to go the distance. But I will say this, that if Terrence Crawford comes with that accuracy that he had during Ross Spence Jr., it's going to be very close to possibly to get to a Terrence Crawford stoppage. I will give Canelo credit. He's got a chin. He's got it there. He's taken some punches. He's been in tight situations, but he's got to think back to, some of the things he's learned in some of those previous fights, and he's got to bring that guy there. This is a thing where there were heated exchanges in some of these press conferences, and that's where I kind of feel that, the way Canelo got the best of those exchanges, but I do feel that Terrence Crawford is going to come in that ring and say, hey, don't think I forgot about that. And that's something that's really good, because when we get to fight week, here, as we always say, we're in fight week. This is the weigh-ins fight week breakdown. And like I said, I'm going to score. I'm going to do the scorecards like always. I'm going to have the scorecards done. I'm going to have those scorecards up there and get those scorecards done and get all of that. So, so you guys can understand, like I did for the Angelino fight. I felt, when I said my 114, 113 Angelino, I say that in terms of I'm going to score the cards. Like I sit there, I say, is that a 10-8 round? Is that a 10-9 round? How do I feel, And when they're taking points, when the referee's walking around taking points, I take points off too. I do too. So I try to make sure I scored how I felt the fight went, and that's just going to help me give better accurate presumptions. And over time, I'll get better and better. And then, that's just a quiet way for me to go about it. But I will definitely let you know how I feel about this Canelo Crawford, because it is here. The All Attraction Icon fight is here. Canelo Crawford is here. And I think that's a really good thing now that we've gotten to this Canelo Crawford. We're going to see, this is something we talked about, that this was going to be good. Hey, if you're Canelo, after this fight, no matter what the verdict is, do you continue to run from Jake Paul, or do we finally see you try to go towards Jake Paul and set something up while Jake is focused on Tank Davis? So this is, and now I'm going to bring it back to Jake, because he did run from Jake. Jake had it all lined up, and then it fell through. Why? You're running from Jake Paul. Jake Paul is trying to get a belt, and it seems like everybody that holds a belt is up and running from Jake Paul. Now, I'm not saying all of them, but, he was trying to grab the WBC. It didn't happen. I don't know why we're running from Jake Paul, but if Canelo's going to start running from good fights, well, you can't run from this. You got Terrence Crawford this week, and Crawford is going to make it Crawford season, and he's going to swipe the way with Canelo, and he's gonna make an example out of him. And I hope he does, because you go in there, and Canelo, who has been such a top 8 totem, like he can't be beat, you go in and you turn around and you take something else as if, oh, that's a better fight than Jake Paul. Don't get me wrong. This is good. We wanted this. We talked about this on the pod. We wanted this. We wanted Canelo Crawford, but we also wanted Jake. But it doesn't matter the order as long as we get them both, kind of is how I feel about it. But nonetheless, if we don't get a good-looking Canelo, like if we don't get a good standing boxing Canelo, and when we get whatever the past couple Canelos we've had, and we don't get a good boxing Canelo, I hate to be Canelo that night, but Terrence Crawford, if he comes and shows up the way I think he is, it's gonna be real interesting for Canelo. He's gonna have a tough night. He's gonna have to find his way through it. And I know he's got a strong chin, but a chin can only hold up so long when you're up against true craftsmanship. And that's what I'm saying. Now, I'm not officially saying that anybody's going to knock anybody out, but I'm saying that in this situation, I favor Crawford, because I've seen Crawford's fights lately, and I think he's packing the punch. And that's just that's my, first and foremost, that's my opinion. That's my opinion to the matter. That's how I will feel for the matter. And that's kind of as many would say, that's how I sway for this fight. I think that Crawford's got a good looking thing going, but at the end of the day, it all depends about who shows up and who doesn't. I say it like this: Canelo doesn't, Crawford doesn't. It's possible Canelo could come and reign, but I don't think so. I think that the way I feel Crawford is going to bring after the exchanges during these press conferences, I think Crawford's going to bring a good level Terrence Crawford ready to go. I don't think we're going to get a lousy Terrence Crawford. I don't think so. I think we're going to get a good looking Terrence Crawford, a good running Terrence Crawford, and a good boxing Terrence Crawford. And if we get a good boxing Terrence Crawford with that accuracy from Earl Spence Jr., like I've already said, it's going to be a hard night for Canelo. It's not going to be easy for Canelo. He's had great fights. He's had good fights. And he's had fights that have not been easy for him. And at the end of the day, Terence Crawford is unbeaten. He has never lost a fight. So now you're coming in here against an unbeaten guy and you think you're going to snatch his O? I don't think that's going to happen like Canelo thinks. I think Terence Crawford's going to come in here and he's going to show exactly why he's unbeaten. He's unbeaten for a reason because many have not been able to get in there and touch Terence Crawford. Terence Crawford can box, and that's exactly the reason why I'm citing Terence Crawford. Look at Canelo. Look at how many hard fights that we should have had. What happened? Why hasn't he fought Benavidez yet? I'm just saying, why? Canelo continuously runs from fights that he knows he stands no chance. I'm sorry, but he lined up a fight now where he stands no chance. There is a percentage of a chance for him, but the way Terence Crawford, I believe, is going to come through this fight is a way that Canelo's not gonna have a stench in this fight. He's not gonna be able to hold in this fight. And at this point, you look and wonder how that fight night will go. And I could be wrong. You know, everybody's allowed to be wrong. Everybody's allowed to make mistakes in life, and that's nothing but the truth. But what I'm gonna say here is that if Canelo is able to go through and do not Canelo, if Terence Crawford is able to do exactly what I think he's going to do, and he's able to do it to perfection, I think Canelo is going to have a very tough night. He's going to be soul searching for answers, and he's not going to be able to find it in that ring on Saturday night. And that's going to be a problem for Canelo. It's not going to be no problem for my boy Crawford, because Crawford's going to go in there and do exactly what he has to do. And I think there's going to be nothing short of that. He's been in good fights before. When people counted him out versus Spence, he went in there and he showed exactly what he was going to do against Earl Spence. There have been multiple times where they have said, you know, Crawford has met his match. And now they're still saying the same thing. I don't believe it. I think Crawford's got this. I think Crawford's going to go and do what he's got to do. But I don't think either guy's going to knock somebody out. But I will say this. If Crawford comes with that accuracy, it's going to be a hard night for Canelo. I give him credit. He's a great fighter. He's done great things. But Terence Crawford is on a different level. He's on a different level. And I just think that sometimes at the end of the day, like he said to Canelo, said, Jake Paul, you're not on my level. I don't think he's ready for a Terence Crawford right now. If Crawford comes full force like he did against Earl Spence, I think it's going to be a bad night for Canelo. And that's on Canelo. That's on Canelo, you know. And after, and if you lose this fight, we know if he loses this fight, he's not going to schedule Jake. Because, you know, if you can't beat Terence Crawford, I don't think you're going to be able to come in there and say, hey, you'll pummel Jake Paul. But, again, I won't say that or may or may not happen, because let's see how he does against this Tank Davis fight. Then we'll see where Jake Paul lands against Canelo. Either way, I think it might be an interesting fight if they can make that happen. But at this time, he's focused on Tank Davis. And if I was Jake, I would also focus on Tank Davis, because Tank Davis has a good resume. So if you're Canelo, your best bet is try to let this go the distance, and you hope the judges give you the win. But if you can't, Terence Crawford is going to turn it into crawfish season, and he's going to get you. And that's why I think this is a fairly interesting event for Canelo. It's not interesting for Crawford. Crawford knows what he's got to go in there and do, and he's going to do it. He's going to do it. You know, he surrounded himself in this camp with the right guys, and that's exactly why I think Crawford's going to do it. I think that's exactly why I think Crawford's going to go in there and handle business. But if Crawford goes in there and handles business like I think he is, it's over for Canelo. It's over for Canelo if Crawford comes in there the way I think he is. If Crawford figures out Canelo within the first 3 rounds, that's it. That's it. In the first 3, if Crawford can find his footing in the first 3, that's going to be it. He's dangerous when he gets into those later rounds and already has a feeling out. Now, if he gets a feeling out in rounds maybe 6, 7, 8, we're talking a little different here, because 6, 7, 8, it's very possible that 6, 7, 8, he might be able to find some footing through the rest of that. But then I'm going to say that's going to go the distance. That's going to be up to the judges. But I still think even if Crawford can do what he has to do in those first 6, between that 6, 7, 8, if he's got a lead going, I think that's going to be Crawford's fight. And I think it's going to be interesting. I think it's going to be a really good fight, no matter how you sway. And I think that if that comes to be the case, Terence Crawford is going to be in a really good position for some boxing history to go ahead and undispute 3 weight classes on the men's side. We've seen it on the women's, but to see this on the men's side, a thing like that, to have Terence Crawford come and take another weight class and be undisputed again, that is just going to more solidify the fact that Terence Crawford is better than most things. Not that I think, I already know Terence Crawford is the guy that can go in there and do exactly what needs to be done. But the wonder is all these other doubters that surround him, that surround the Crawford story, not him specifically, but the Crawford story. They're going to be humbled, and they're going to learn that Terence Crawford can do a lot. And when they find out what Terence Crawford can do, that's when they're going to say to themselves, they wish they weren't a doubter. And you know what? That's why we have words in the in language as bandwagon. They'll jump on the wagon and say, "Hey, Crawford is good now," but it's too late after he's already done his deed of taking down Canelo. So that's going to be interesting. But you wonder, if he takes down Canelo, would you have Jake Paul, Terence Crawford? So I know we're getting a lot of this Jake Paul in the mix, but it's a true testament and wonder the way stuff may sway. I think that this Terence Crawford Terence Crawford Canelo was a great matchup, and I'm glad that we're starting to see it, and I'm glad that we're seeing, I'm glad I'm seeing this as a Dana White surrounded fight, because we see Dana White at some of the press conferences, and now I understand here that Dana now is scheduling these mega star matchups that we like to see. So that's a good thing for Dana and a good thing for us boxing fans, because now we're seeing, okay, you didn't come into the business and do wrong things. You came into the business and you line up Canelo Crawford as I would like to perceive his first lined up fight. And now that's like, all right, Dana, is this what we got to come? Everything's going to be potentially big clashing fights. If that's the case, well, Dana, continue to love boxing, continue to do the way you want to do it. But as long as we get matchups like this, where high-level athletes are clashing, where this is something that you want to see it, and you see Dana White standing there promoting it and standing by it, absolutely is what you want to see. When we talked about Dana coming over to the boxing, we talked about, you got to do things differently than the way the UFC is being ran, sort of. And you came out and you lined this Terence Crawford, Canelo. I understand he may have nothing to do with that, but he's standing at the press conference. He's promoting it. He's putting, hey, Dana likes this fight behind it. And if that's the case, I think that he's doing a good thing in terms of what he schedules around for boxing. Because at the end of the day, yes, it may be 2 teams or promotion companies getting going, but at the end of the day, if Dana's scheduling, this the Canelo like this, and very well like this, and good fights like this, then it's not far off to see something like that. But if that's the case and Dana's is a little more involved in this, we may not see that. We may not see Canelo Jake Paul, because we know Dana White potentially and Jake Paul. This is where I say, if this is the old Google it, what's going on between Dana White, Jake Paul. They have been known not to like each other, whether they made up or not, whether the case may be, we know that there was a point in time they didn't really like each other. And we know that if Dana White's scheduling megastar matchups, that might not be in the case. But it may be if Dana White wants to see Canelo absolutely take out Jake Paul, absolutely make quick work of Jake Paul. Now, I'm not saying that's what's going to happen. I'm just saying that might be a thought. We're speculating on what might be a thought here. And that could possibly be a thought, hey, Canelo could go through and make work of Jake Paul. Well, first and foremost, potentially not before Tank Davis does it. We all know that. Not before Tank Davis gets in there and makes a good work of Jake Paul. So if Tank Davis doesn't beat Canelo to the punch and get it done first, it's going to be fairly interesting. Now, in terms of that Jake Paul, Tank Davis. I'm not saying that I believe Tank Davis is going to win or I believe Jake is going to win. We'll have a more accurate, prediction closer to the fight. But for today, we're going to focus more on this Terence Crawford and Canelo. But we can't help but notice where Jake lands in this mix, because Jake almost had Canelo, and Jake is formally may or may not still have beef with Dana White. If you're not sure, as I always say, you Google it, whether there's still beef going on at this time. We're not going to be doing that because we know there was a point in time when they did. But either way, I do believe that what Jake is doing right now, scheduling Tank Davis, is very well. And what Canelo did, saying, oh, no, I got a chance to fight Terence Crawford and line up a megastar matchup. Let me get Crawford first. Let me go ahead and get Crawford first. Take care of Crawford, which he's not going to do. Take care of Crawford, and then figure out later about some Jake. Well, guess what? He's not going to take care of Crawford. Canelo's not going to knock out Terence Crawford. I'm telling you, I believe it, and I'm telling you right now, Canelo's not going to knock out Terence Crawford. I'm telling you that. It's just not going to happen. Whether many won't agree with me or not on that, I'm telling you, I believe 100% Canelo's not knocking out Terence Crawford. It's not happening. I can still be wrong, but I don't think there's a possibility of that going on, of me being wrong, because I think the true craftsmanship of Terence Crawford is very different. And when Terence Crawford gets on a roll, Terence Crawford is on a roll, And that's something that not a lot of people understand, that when Terence Crawford gets his thing going, his thing is going. His thing is going. And that's a good thing for Terence Crawford. And I like that because Terence Crawford puts himself in good standing for this fight. I think it's a great fight. I can't wait to see the fight, and I'm rooting for Terence Crawford. In every which way possible, I want Terence Crawford to win this fight. And I only want Terence Crawford to win this fight, mainly because Canelo ran from Jake Paul, but also because I like Terence Crawford too. I like Terence Crawford, and we're having a clash that we like. And we kind of knew since like a while it had been something that was brewing, that there was going to be some Canelo Terence Crawford for a while. So it's good to have finally got it. And that's a good thing. And now, to sit here and it's here. It's here. We're at fight week. That's amazing to see. Terence Crawford, Canelo, that's a great thing. I like it for every reason possible what's going on with Canelo, Terence Crawford. There are all good things going on there, and that's nonetheless really great things for Terence Crawford. That he was able to line up a fight like this, that it's megastar, it's amazing, it's big. It's big in itself, and they're putting it on Netflix, So that's what I think is taking the storm over, is this getting rid of pay-per-view. So, I mean, we in the beginning we say whatever else comes up, that's something that comes up. Even like UFC over on Paramount, like they're not going to be charging pay-per-view no more. So this is really interesting that if as fan, you're only going to have the platform, then there's not going to be any more pay-per-view. I'll tell you, combat sports is changing. It's definitely changing. If it's like, hey, you just get this and it's not an extra fee, and that's going to be really good for just a fan. And it's going to drive up, I feel like it's going to drive up the revenue of a lot of these fights. More people are going to buy for the fights because it's going to drive up that revenue, because you're going to see a lot of people say, oh, all I got to do is buy Netflix for this much money and then I have the fight. Great. They're going to say, well, let me get Netflix and then I'm going to watch the fight. If that may be the case, in some cases, it's not still the case when you talk about, there may be a change with Amazon. There may be a change with Amazon Prime. They may possibly not charge extra for, boxing. I know at one point they were, I don't know if they still are, but at one point they were. So it's going to be interesting to see if they still do or they still don't. But the rest of the community that is taking on these kind of sorts is saying, hey, no, you buy my subscription. That's it. You can see the event. You're good. So, that's great for UFC, in terms of us weighing. We get to break down a lot more UFC fights. We'll be able to see most of them, which is really good. in terms of us, because we watch a lot of UFC already as it is, and boxing. Like I try to get every boxing UFC event I can. I try to watch it for the purpose. I try to keep with schedule too. I know there's a few fights or two where I get emails from you guys saying, "Oh, you missed this one." Yeah, but I try to keep up with the schedule. I really do. But it's a lot of fights where I really try to keep up with most of that UFC boxing schedule. And then when wrestling season's in, it's like I got to keep up with all the wrestling. There's matches throughout the week, and so I really do try. And we're getting a lot closer to wrestling season, as like it's going to be here before you know it. So the schedule gets busy, but I try. I try to make sure I see every event as humanly possible. And now that I do my scorecards, I really try to scorecard a lot of these main events. And what I feel is a scorecard, you know. And that's what's going to be for a lot of these fights. And the great part is, even if I don't score them, most times I don't always score them that night. I'll rewatch the fight. I'll get the replay of the fight, of the full fight, and then I'll score it off of that, without actually looking at what the scorecards were or really who wins. I kind of, if I don't, I know I don't see it. I don't really look at who the winner is. I'll go and watch it and then find out the winner. So I kind of drown myself out of social media, and I really try to take a perspective that isn't one sided. It's kind of more neutral, and then I score the bout, and that's where I sometimes I'll post what I did, like I did for Angelino. I posted what I felt, what I had on my scorecard, and I'm gonna start doing that a lot more. But it's just like a lot of fights, a lot of stuff. Sometimes I'm watching UFC and boxing in one night, so it's just we will get some more of that, but it's gonna take some time. It's gonna take some time, and that's one thing I would like to let you know. It is gonna take some time, but we will. I will get to that scoring the cards and all of that. You know, and when we do stuff like that, then yeah, I will do a lot of scorecards and get you all that stuff so that you are able to understand where I find my scorecards are, or where I felt who won and who didn't. And I don't always take the vast majority opinion. I always have an opinion that may be very different versus others. And that's just because the way I feel some of these fights go and stuff like that. But nonetheless, it's still something I feel very well versus one or the other side versus an event. I try to make sure that I always get you how I feel, who I felt won the fight or not. That's what I kind of try to do more than most times. I try to get that out there for the fights, but it's looking like combat sports is going to be taking a change, and definitely one for the better. Definitely one for the better. In most cases, it'll be a for the better type of change for combat sports, and that's a really good thing. And that's kind of why I like it. This possible doing away with the pay-per-view kind of thing is really good, and it may make a really good difference more than most. So that's something that I'm really liking. Um, and it's just a really good thing for the terms of a lot of combat sports to be able to have, no pay-per-view, one fee. It kind of makes me feel like everybody's kind of doing almost like if you ever had Flow Sports, and kind of similar. Also similar to DAZN for a platform, because DAZN is very well like that. As long as you, for some stuff, for some really good stuff, DAZN is like that. Depending on the stuff. I haven't been on DAZN in a while, so I don't really know if there's any changes or anything like that. But DAZN is like that, so I know DAZN is like that, and I know that Flow Sports is like that. When you get Flow Sports, you have Flow Sports. You kind of get a lot of those other interactions, that a lot of that other stuff. I should say a lot of those other events, and they don't tell you got to have an extra or anything like that. But nonetheless, we're at the end of the epi once again. I thank you guys for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, and share. We're gonna keep these epis going. The views are going, for some videos, views are up. Subscriber count is moving a little bit. We're still on track for what I feel is the end of the year goal. For the weigh-in, end of year goal is to kind of have between 30 and 40 subscribers is a realistic goal. The dream goal is between 40 and 50 subscribers. The goal for the end of the year total views I've set for just I feel as a channel is 2K views, which we're at 1,300 right now, and we're very well, I feel like, on track to possibly get near there or super close to there. So that's a good thing. I just want to come out here and thank all you guys, the fans of the weigh-in, for watching, for continuously commenting and showing support. And I'm going to keep these videos up for you guys and breaking down as many fights as I can. And with that being said, this is the weigh-in by Benoit Chestnut and the occasional pop-in Sebastian Romero. And this is yet another episode of the Weigh-In Podcast. So, weigh-in out.
The weigh-in where stories ignite.